n8n just dropped a new feature that's going to change the way we build automations pretty much forever, and it's called the AI Assistant Builder. For months on this channel, I've tried to cheat code my way to building workflows and AI agent armies the hard way. From writing wild 4 to 6 page prompts in Cloud projects, defeating endless JSONs of both workflows and AI agents, and even wiring MCP servers just to speed things up as much as possible. And while those methods kind of worked, but every single method had its problems. You had broken nodes, copy-paste headaches, and initial setups that always felt a bit limited. But with this new feature, that pretty much all changes overnight. With n8n's AI Assistant Builder, you can type or dictate a natural language prompt that will take you from that prompt to a ready-to-use workflow in seconds. No more hacks, no more endless debugging, and most importantly, no external dependencies that you need to make this work. Just clean and perfectly structured automations that you can tweak and iterate over as much as you wish. And while it's still in beta, it's a feature that I've been dreaming about since day one of using n8n, and it's awesome because it's native, effortless, and most importantly, accessible to everyone, whether you're a complete beginner or you know what you're doing. Let's check it out together. So this is what the latest and greatest version of the prompt to workflow feature looks like in n8n. And one huge disclaimer here is if you refresh your n8n cloud and you can't see this, then don't worry, it's being rolled out in phases incrementally. So I think right now it's for a smaller portion of power users, and then it's going to be rolled out over the coming weeks. So if you see this and you have FOMO, don't worry, it's coming. But basically what you see when you come in is a beautiful what would you like to automate with an open text box where you can enter a prompt. And here's where you want to be methodical, where you want to walk through the high level of what you're trying to create. Ideally, you want to name drop any tools you're using like Outlook or HubSpot or Calendly or what have you. And this is where you go from the actual prompt itself. And if you're unsure on what to prompt, then you have some helper buttons right here to give you some inspiration, whether it's invoice processing pipelines or a RAG knowledge assistant. I would imagine a lot of you might be interested in this one. If you click on this, then it will actually draft a sample prompt that you can use and you can read through to upskill yourself on the prompt engineering. So you can see here it says, build a pipeline that accepts PDF, CSV, or JSON files through an n8n form, and it's being very intentional about saying a form, and then chunk the documents into 1,000 token segments, generate embeddings, and store in a vector database. So you can read through this, test out the others, and if you're not as good at prompt engineering, this will give you the training wheels you need to get started. But if you want to do things the old-fashioned way, then you can still do the start manually, where you click on the plus button. It might appear a little bit different on your screen, but when you click on it, it will allow you to do the normal n8n operations you're used to doing. But wait, there's more. You also have on the sidebar, this has always been some form of chat assistant, but now it's also become the area where you'll see, you're right here, the builder display all the dialogue from your back and forth. It'll tell you how it's built, what it's built, and this is awesome because you can ask it questions about every single node, explain to yourself what it means. So if you are a beginner, this is not magic. You still have to learn n8n, you have to learn the foundations and the basics, but you can have now a co-pilot to help you explain what's on screen and break down some concepts that might be a bit more ambiguous at the beginning. So before we get into some more structured examples that I prepared to actually put this to the test and see how good it is, let's just ask a very basic prompt to see how this works. So I'll just click into here and I'll just dictate the following. Can you create a workflow that will automate my lead qualification? I basically have a system that goes from Calendly and then it stores that contact in a GoHighLevel account, and I want to be able to use maybe OpenAI somewhere in the middle to look at the person's information, their domain, maybe take the suffix of their domain and look it up and do some deep research with something like Perplexity, and then have all that logged into where it makes the most sense. And if they're a qualified lead, meaning they seem to be from a reputable company, then I receive an email on my Outlook letting me know about that contact. So a bit ambitious, but I want to see how close or how far we can get with just one single prompt with this brand new feature. So if I just click on here, this nice orange button, build workflow, it will get to work on the right hand side and go through and come up with the workflow. And typically this takes anywhere from seconds to a couple minutes. And in this very first instance, we'll just take a look at the play-by-play. So the assistant starts to search for nodes in its database, and lucky for it, it has the up-to-date database from n8n. And then it says, perfect, now let me create the workflow. I'll build a comprehensive qualification system. And then it basically plans it out. So it says, Calendly trigger, AI agent with OpenAI, and Perplexity tool for research, conditional logic to check if qualified. And then it goes through and then creates the nodes, connects the nodes, and then updates the parameters of those nodes. And what's awesome here is you don't have the typical experience where maybe you copy paste something and you have a broken node, or a node that just looks weird and out of place. And within around 40 seconds, we got to the point where it went through, it tells you what's been built. So it says, I've created a comprehensive lead qualification workflow that automates your entire process from Calendly to GoHighLevel with AI-powered research. And then it doesn't just tell you what's been built, so a summary of all that, but it tells you the key requirements of what you need to do next, where usually when people just copy paste and they're beginners or they use an MCP server, they're like, what do I do next? Is this ready to use? And the answer 99% of the time is no, because you have to go into these nodes, either add your credentials, your API keys, configure a few parameters based on what you're looking for, and then move on from there. And this part here is something I really value and I think will help a lot of people because it walks through exactly how it works. So step 1, the new Calendly booking triggers the workflow. Step 2, the AI extracts and researches the company domain. Then Perplexity provides deep company intelligence, and then the AI scores lead quality from a 1 to 10 scale. It came up with that on its own. And then step 5, you have only qualified leads get stored in GoHighLevel, and then you receive email notifications with a full research summary. And what's awesome is we have a workflow right here that seems to be connected. And obviously you can see here we have multiple areas where there's a red error, but that red error just denotes, for the most part, that we need to just add our credentials. So if we go on the very first node here, all we have to do is add our credentials, and you'll see right away it goes to this non-error state. Same thing with OpenAI, especially if you already have credentials. You just have to double click and then use or select the model that you want to use, and then when you click back, it'll be gone. And then same thing with Perplexity. If you move it over right here, if we double click it, you'll see once you add your Perplexity account, let me remove these arrows, and you'll see right here, it put the prompts for you, which is something we had to usually beg and plead something like Claude to put together for us. And it puts it together out of the box. So you already have a place to start with and iterate through the prompt until it meets your requirements for what you're looking to accomplish. It also sets up the parameters like maximum number of tokens, output randomness. So a lot of the hard work is done here. One area where you're going to have to intervene is naturally this section where it has domains. In a lot of cases, at least right now, it has a dummy set of data where it references it. For now, in this beta state, it will come up with these little placeholders for dynamic data. So as you actually get production data from left to right, you'll be able to have that data flow down, and then you'll be able to see the assets right here, and then be able to plug and play in the text area, and then have it be actually dynamic based on all the inputs that are coming down the pipe. And for the last one, you'll see here, this is the Outlook one. And if you add your credentials, you'll be able to just toggle and you'll see it go away. But you will notice if we actually pull this up right here, that we have a series of templated data. Again, this isn't necessarily how the data is structured, but we can actually send a sample event and see how it flows down the pipe. And this is the cool part. Because we have our Copilot to the right here, we can technically click on this Calendly, and then instead of actually sending an event or sending a fake event to generate the data, I can click on Set Mock Data here, and I can just use my little helper at the right-hand side. Can you help me create some mock data that I can use that would closely resemble what I would receive from a Calendly webhook for a brand new booking, and output it in JSON format so I can copy-paste it into the node? So if I paste this here, we can use it not just to build the workflow, but help us create assets or parameters that we can use to configure and test out the workflow. And after a few seconds, we have this sample data right here that I can copy paste from here to here. I probably could have asked for a code block to make this cleaner, but if I copy paste this right here, then I should be able to save and pin it. And then I can test out whether or not the workflow would actually function. So now that I have the data pinned, I can click on Execute Workflow right here. And then we'll see what this actually looks like. And naturally, I don't have a GoHighLevel account set up, so that won't work on this side. But at least we'll see what the example assets we can use to plug and play will look like. So naturally, like I said, I'm not logged in, so we would have never been able to log it in here. But from here all the way to the check lead quality seems to have ran. And whether or not we actually have usable data, we'll double check right now. So in this case, we have the sample data, which we'll double check what it was to begin with. So we had some questions on what's your company name, answer tech startup, question, what's your role, answer VP of marketing. So that's the sample data. It then went to this AI agent that seems to have actual sample data. And let's see if this domain information was extracted. So it looks like it actually took the information from the code node and used it And you can see that right here. This one obviously wasn't updated. It was basically making a created variable out of thin air, which is why it says undefined. But we do have something to work with here. And if we take a look at the Perplexity step right here, you'll see it took the company query, it searched text startup, which was a valid variable from our input, and this is what it came up with right here. So naturally, this is not perfect, but this is clearly a jump from like 0 to 60 to 70%, where all I have to do is really just configure all the variables I need, make sure that everything is dynamic, and obviously log into the right accounts. But in under 20 to 30 minutes, this could be functional, and a lot of the prompt engineering is already done for me. It's a matter of just fine-tuning to your specific workflow. And one more thing I want to point out before we go to the next example is notice how in the workflow, it decided that this was the best place to use an AI agent. Instead of using, let's say, a message a model node from OpenAI, or just using a Perplexity step. So based on its judgment, it decided that having Perplexity as a tool to this AI agent made the most sense, which is awesome because this will also help be your architecture partner. Especially as this develops, I would imagine that it will be able to advise you, you know what, I don't think you should use an agent and a sub-agent. This could probably be a workflow featuring a small agent node. And those are the things that will help you go from a beginner builder with n8n to someone that's more intermediate and experienced. And to really drive the point home, I want to show you how you can not only build the workflow, but extend it. So let's say I said something along these lines. I want to be able to take this workflow and add a section that listens in for the Fireflies meeting. And if the Fireflies meeting transcript is analyzed by AI to show that the prospect is not the type of person we want to work with, then they should go through a nurture drip sequence. It could be a series of emails, it could be some form of collateral. I want you to imagine and extend this automation to accommodate that possible reality. So again, pretty vague prompt. I'm not giving it too much tactical. I will show you examples of really good prompts after, but let's send this over and let's see what we get. And just like that, we now have two workflows. The original one we had here and the newer one that's an extension of the first. Now, I said Fireflies for a very specific reason, because its node is a community node and it's a much newer one. So it might not known about it and it might not have it in its database. So in this case, if we zoom in right here, we have a webhook that we could actually sub out, and we could go back to the normal version of n8n and go to something like Fireflies and click on this, install the node, and what we would be looking for is, let's say, get a transcript. So we could sub this out really quick. Let me take this out right here, and then we'll go back, we'll go to Fireflies right there, and then we'll go to get a transcript. I won't set it up for now, but this could be the right configuration, right? And now we have some way to basically break down the JSON that we get from the Fireflies. And then here it comes up with an AI agent again to be able to go through the transcript, and you can see the system message right here. I'll click on this button, which is in the newer version of n8n. It lets you see the prompt a lot more clearly. So you can see it's a pretty beefy prompt, and it says, you are a sales readiness analyst specializing in evaluating meeting transcripts to determine if prospects are ready for sales engagement or further nurturing. And it goes through the role. It even comes up with criteria. Evaluate BANT criteria: budget, authority, need, and timeline. That's pretty impressive. And then it prompts probably way better than I would have out of the box, and I'm pretty decent at prompting. So once again, all you have to do is double click, choose the model, or if you're good with the model, select the right account, and you're good to go. And then it checks sales readiness. So this might be based on some form of criteria. So if you go on meeting analysis, it looks like it's setting up for some form of score. So depending on a score for buying signals, objections, next steps, etc., it would then go on to sales readiness. It remembered that we're using GoHighLevel. This is important because sometimes it does a really good job of remembering, and other times, you'll see right here, it's coming up with Gmail nodes, even though we clearly said we use Outlook. So it's not perfect, but again, super helpful on ideation and brainstorming, because you can see it's structured the email sequence right here from send nurture email 1 to 2 to 3, and I'm curious if it actually drafted those emails. And look at that. It did draft those emails. That's awesome. And you can imagine you could still use this copilot right here and go to Builder and say, you know what, I don't like the copy you used for send nurture email 1. Typically in the old world, where I would hack things in Cloud projects, I would have to go wait for my quota to reset, generate the whole JSON again with that right prompt or right set of prompts, re-copy paste, reconfigure, re-sign in, and it's a bit of a mess. This is as simple as it gets from a Copilot perspective. All right, so that's enough with example one. I'm going to do a little shortcut here to create a new workflow. So I'll just take this part of the URL, paste it here. So now we have a brand new canvas that's going to pop up, and I'll paste our latest and greatest prompt. All right, so this one's pretty beefy because I prepared it beforehand. But you'll notice I see something right away that I want to be able to note. So I say, build a LangChain AI agent to act as an autonomous customer inquiry handler. Now, why did I say LangChain AI agent? I noticed that when I said AI agent, sometimes it would use the AI agent node, and sometimes it would just use AI nodes. So when I said LangChain AI agent, 8 to 9 times out of 10, it would use the proper AI agent structure. And then I say, act as an autonomous customer inquiry handler. The workflow should trigger from a new form submission on our website's contact form. The LangChain's AI agent's primary goal is to analyze the inquiry and take the correct action. Equip this agent with 5 specific tools. And then I go through what those tools are: a knowledge base retrieval, a tool to create a new service ticket in HubSpot, a Slack messaging tool, an Outlook email tool to send direct responses to customers, and a web search tool. And then when I say when a form is submitted, the agent must first search for the company online to understand their business context, then determine if it's a sales inquiry, support question, or partnership request. For support questions, it must use the knowledge base tool to find a direct answer and then basically send a message in Slack and create a high priority ticket in HubSpot. So definitely a bit of a mouthful, but if we click on build workflow, let's see what it comes up with. And we get something like this, where we have the AI agent, we have the tools we asked for, like the HubSpot create a deal, post a message on Slack, send an Outlook email. We even have the knowledge base set up with the understanding that we have to set up embeddings in OpenAI to be able to store it, and then the chat model as well. But we do have a mistake here. So this, I asked for a form submission tool, not a contact form webhook. So this is an example of where we can actually go back and forth now. Okay, so everything looks good except for the very first part of the workflow. It should actually be a form that is a form submission tool that someone would fill out. So use the form node, configure the form so that someone can enter the information, let's say their first name, last name, email, phone number, name of company, and what they're looking for, and that would be the form that leads to the rest of the workflow. So now we'll submit that, and since it's so focused and such a focused iteration, it should be able to get it. And in under a minute, it was able to swap out the webhook for the right form, and if we click on the form, you'll see we already have all the fields we asked for, like first name, last name, email address, etc. And if we click on the execute step right here, we should be able to get a pop-up of the form and basically configure and see what it would look like for a user to actually input their information. So if we click right here, this should create a pop-up, and you'll see, voila, we have first name, last name, email address, phone number, company name, etc. And if I fill all of this out, this should create mock data that we can then pin, and then once again, execute and work with the workflow until it's ready to go. So if we send this inquiry, this will create the webhook response, and then we have all this data right here. We can pin this and use it and test it to our heart's content. But pretty much it shows that you can not only create the workflow itself, but if you want to be able to make some slight changes, it's very reactive and proactive, and not only fixing it, but doing the next natural step. And for the last experiment I wanted to show you today, I want to be able to use the brand new feature from n8n, which is using an AI agent not just as a part of the workflow, but as a tool of another AI agent. So it's kind of like having a master and employee AI agent, one reporting to the other. So in this case, we say, build a multi-agent LangChain AI content generation swarm triggered by a form submission with a single blog post topic. The workflow must orchestrate a master LangChain content director. So this is the head manager equipped with 4 tools. We then go through the 4 tools. I won't read through those. Then we say the master agent must first search the web for the top 10 articles on the topic, then invoke the research agent tool to analyze these articles and create a comprehensive brief. And then we go through exactly what tools it'll need to use. So in this case, generate 5 Twitter posts and 1 LinkedIn post. So the rest is pretty straightforward. We'll click on build workflow and we'll see what it comes up with. And it does a perfect job pretty much from the beginning, where we have exactly what I looked for. The master manager agent right here. Then we have the employee agent, which is the research agent tool. We have all the other tools right here. All we need to do is obviously just log in and set those up. And then we have, without the webhook, we actually have the blog topic form. So when we click on this right here, we have the blog topic name and element. We don't have to actually execute this. We saw what this looks like. But other than setting up these tools, you can see we have a prompt for the master agent that pretty much mimics exactly what we were looking for. So you are a master content directory agent responsible for orchestrating a complete content generation workflow. It then goes through the process that I pretty much delineated in my initial prompt. And then if we go to the research agent and click on this button again, the focus parameter, it'll say you are a specialized research agent that analyzes web search results and creates comprehensive research briefs. Again, gives it some form of criteria, and then always provide detailed, well-organized research. And you can see this one has a tool right here. So it has the Google search tool that's shared with the manager agent. And then we have the short-term window buffer right here. And then again, you are pretty much on your way to building this out. 80% of the brainstorming and the actual architecture is there. It's a matter of you going back and forth with the prompts, setting up, in this case, the Google Sheet, the Google Doc, signing in with those credentials, setting those up, and then obviously choosing the model you need right here. And that's pretty much it for this first of probably many demos I'm going to do on this YouTube channel using this life-changing feature. So if you're a beginner or someone that's intermediate and really looking to either get to the next level or just remove your limiting belief that you can actually build these automations, this is one of the best times of ever to be able to use such a tool to not only draft and build, but also test and go back and forth and understand and ask questions like, what's a webhook? What is this doing? What does this parameter stand for? And now you basically have a tutor at your side. And the very last thing is, if you do have FOMO to trying out this feature and you don't want to wait the couple weeks until it loads up in your account, then feel free to hop into my early AI adopters community. I'm going to take some requests from members on different things they want to try, and I'll build it myself on my instance, then just provide you the JSON so you can play around with it. So if that's of interest to you, check the second link in the description below, and I'll see you inside. I'll see you in the next one.